succeeding in your history studies. I pay respects to Larrakia elders, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge First Nations people's ability to preserve their environment and their communities over thousands of years. Respect. Today, we're going to have a look at Stephen's request, some of the support services from the library. I've got 8 tips for success in your history studies. And then Rachel take us through some essential resources for success in your history unit, I suppose, or university, and we'll plug you into some useful resources. So first things first, I'm Josh. I'm a language and learning advisor in CDU Library, and I work with Rachel, who is an academic and research librarian here. And the library has a whole bunch of cool stuff to help you get through. Some of the self-access materials that we proctor are the Study Skills website, which is open 24/7 and can give you help with any of the assignment types. It'll even give you example assignments and show you basic structures. You can get to it through that link. We also run subject guides, so the librarians carefully choose resources that suit your unit. So check that out if you get a minute. And there are referencing guides for all of the main kinds of referencing that we use. I believe we're using CDU Harvard in this. I'm not an expert at that. I'll leave it to Rach to fill you in on that. And then in-person support, we've got appointments for with academic and research librarians. These guys can help you with your referencing, finding sources, using reference managers, and sort of research and publishing stuff. The language and learning advisory team can help you understand your assignments, anything to do with English, academic writing, presentation and study skills, and even some exam prep. And then there's a group of peer advisors who've completed the unit that you're doing, and they've done well in it, and they've volunteered to make themselves available for consultations, and they also run workshops. So yeah, that's our in-person and online offerings. The full list is there, and I'll put that at the end of the presentation if you want to go back and double check it. So 8 tips for success in your history unit. The first one would be to plan properly. And we've got a bunch of tools to help you do that. And I'm talking about planning that's sort of not just in your head, like physically mapping out your weekly plan, scheduling your assignments, and managing your time. If it helps you to sort of formalize it by filling in one of these little tables, you might want to sit down and figure out how much sleep you need, when you eat, etc., in preparation for you to make a weekly schedule. And a weekly planning option might be something like this. Just get a schedule or a table from Monday through to Friday, I hope, and sort of block it all out. The way that I plan my weekly schedule now is just in Microsoft Outlook. So I've got a color-coded system where I've got all of my business happening there, and it sort of helps to keep me on track. If you want to dig deeper and do some assignment planning, it's good at the beginning of the semester to figure out when your assignments are due. So let's say I want to start an assignment tomorrow and it's due in 3 weeks and it's called test. This tool will go through and like literally lay out your plan for you. It's like, watch this video about how to understand the task. By this date, book appointments with language and learning advisors or academic and research advisors. Have a look at the subject guide. Make your plan, do your draft, proofread, editing, final checks, and submit on time. So that's a nice, useful tool to sort of help you get your head around understanding your assignments and sort of blocking them into your schedule. What else? I think something that I do to improve my planning, the big reveal for me after working at CDU for a while was basically Microsoft Outlook. I didn't use it in my previous job. I had a boss and a secretary who told me what to do but here we have to manage our own schedule. So that was the most helpful thing for me. How about you, Rach? What's one thing that you do, or one thing that you would do if you wanted to improve your planning?
Oh, absolutely. I start with the main things that definitely fit into the calendar, such as tutorial times and lecture times, and then work around that by filling out other details. I also like to put in my due date for each assignment and make sure that I've got notification the day before that it's due the next day, so I've got time to submit on time.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think bare minimum as a new student or as a student starting out a unit, you should find out the due dates for every single one of your assessments and put them into your calendar so that you've at least got a big picture view from the beginning. Second bit of advice is to understand your unit expectations. And I know you probably, somebody's probably told you this before, but it never hurts to go back over it again. The first place I would direct you to in a history unit would be to go to the study guide. So this is the example for IAS 132, I believe it is. Your lecturer has done a great job and put together a document to help you and ensure your success. And I would encourage you to read it. So this one will tell you the description, the assessments, how much they're worth, the required readings. It'll block out your schedule week by week and what you'll be doing in your tutorials. And then there's this really useful bit at the bottom where you can read about your assessments and get a full task. And mm, I'd advise you to have a look at that. At the bottom, there's information about extensions, late submissions, plagiarism, etc. So that's read it. Read your study guide that your lecturer has prepared for you. Now, in your case, your lecturer has done an excellent job and prepared a sort of supplementary document. And this one's even better than the study guide. So uh, read this in sort of conjunction with your main study guide. But this is all about referencing using CDU Harvard and writing an essay. So you can see it goes through and starts from the beginning. What is an essay? How should you lay out your paper? You know, organization conventions. How should you do quotations? Um, what kind of style and spelling and tone should you employ? Uh, oh, CDU Oxford. I didn't know that that's what
That's
we're
right.
going to do.
And that's
Is
a
that what?
great point there because we're going to be looking at some different referencing styles too. But that's why it's so important to have a look through this document. As a student, you might miss out too if you didn't look through.
So it just, if you had to sum it up, Rach, what's the difference between CDU Oxford and Harvard?
Well, Oxford is a footnoting style, and CDU Harvard and APA are in-text citation style. They're
Right,
still the same way of acknowledging where the information has come from, just different styles.
right. And then at the bottom here, there's examples of how to do footnotes, how to do citations. It's how to do a bibliography, and the different styles for the different kinds of sources. So you'll know by now that we reference a book differently than we reference a journal article. So there's some examples there that are written by your lecturer. So it's a really good way for you to sort of find out what your lecturer wants and to sort of give them that. If you want to check out other styles of referencing, the librarians have put together this. If you go to library subject guides, referencing guides, your one, or the one that I thought you were doing, was this one, CDU History Referencing and Essay Writing Guide. And that's that document I just showed you. But if you ever get a rarer style, oh yeah, that's right, this is in the other styles. So the main styles are CDU, APA, and Harvard. That's the legal style, and this is the other styles. So I think the ones that are relevant to you are that one, and I'm not seeing Oxford anywhere.
No, that's a great point too. So for this unit, you do get to select between three different styles, but they're outlined in your referencing and essay writing guide.
Okay,
And so
cool.
it's actually good because later in this session, we're going to look at and compare the 3 different styles that students can choose from. But this is a great way to say, no matter where you go through your studies, your referencing style will be on this guide. You find the right style, the right guide, and that will help you with referencing.
Cool bananas. So yeah, like Rach said, uh, different history units might have different referencing styles, and even within this unit, it seems that you can employ a couple of different styles. Um, and yeah, I suppose read those documents and ask for help if anything's unclear. That's how I'd sort of sum that up. Third point is about reading. Now, you probably won't get through your degree unless you read properly. Like, and um, it's essential to the process. So my recommendation is to do the recommended readings each week, and your your lecturer is pretty generous here. I noticed in the reading list for this colonial unit that the first there's a suggested text, a main textbook for the talk for the course, but in weeks, um, so this is the recommended text. Um, but if you scroll down a bit further, you can see week by week what they want you to read. And for weeks 1 and 2, there's no prescribed readings, right? But for week 3, there's this one on Portuguese administration and this one on Indigenous assistance. Read those. Don't just get ChatGPT to summarize those articles, which it could do. It could do a pretty good job of summarizing those articles, but there's no replacement for actually going through and doing the reading yourself. Um, you're also encouraged to find extra sources related to that if you think that they can help. And the place that I would point you to find anything extra at your level would just be the main library page. Type something into that box. Don't get excited and start to do, find specific databases at this point, or you might want to use Google Scholar, but there's a reason that I recommend students just search within our library, because it plugs into a whole bunch of other useful things. For example, you can push a button and it will save it to your EndNote referencing manager. You can push another button and it'll make a reference for you. It's sort of integrated with other tools that you might be using. So that's where I would point you for that. Another tip that I'd encourage is for when you're reading to do it critically. And how I do it is I set up some kind of Excel spreadsheet or Word document. And the first thing I do is I make a reference for it. Now, I'm not sure if that's proper Harvard method. Maybe Rach can critique me if I'm wrong. But once I've made the
Oxford.
reference, okay.
Uh, and then there's in-text citation. So it's a bit of both, but we'll look at some examples too. But that's a great way. The main thing is you've got acknowledgement there. We just put it in the right format.
Yeah. And so this is just how I would read one article, write the reference first, summarize it down to what the main idea or gist of it is. Um, Maybe I find a couple of quotes that I like, or a couple of, parts of that article that I want to keep. If I do that, I'll paste them into here and say where I got them from, so that when I'm using them later in my writing, I can make the citation easy. It's also useful to make connections to other articles. So this is the main article, Sa Desai. If I can, at this early stage, find something that Sa Desai says that the other reading disagrees with, like make the readings sort of talk to each other and see how they compare and contrast with each other. That comes in really handy when you're doing some kind of critical analytical writing later on. And then at the bottom, you can just put how you feel about it, or thoughts or questions that you might want to ask. Um, Now, in week 3, for example, you've got 2 readings to do. If you just make a little table like that with those 5 boxes and fill that out for those 2 readings, you've done your due diligence. But later on, when you get asked to combine and synthesize 10 or 20 articles in an assessment, you can just extend this table in Excel and fill in a whole spreadsheet that is a really good tool for later. Um, if you want a starter template, You can download one from here. CDU's given one on this study skills page. This is just an empty lit review spreadsheet. So you put your reference here, talk about the methodology, findings, conclusion. You might want to critique the article, reference it to other articles, or give some kind of summative statement. So if you want to start an entry level spreadsheet for reading and taking notes, you can download one there. Third bit of advice, fourth, is to participate actively. And, so in lectures, don't just sit there with your camera turned off, muted, and, not participate. As much as you can, put questions into the chat. Make sure that you go to all your lecturers and your tutorials. Engage in discussions as much as you can. So if you look on your unit, there is a discussion page in the unit sort of outline. Go in there and join. Ask silly questions, which are encouraged. So this is a discussion in the colonial unit, um, inviting discussion. You can go and sort of ask questions or participate. I see that only 2 people in that unit have done it so far. Like, join, engage if you can with your colleagues and with your lecturer. So what's one way that you could interact better if you were a student, and I guess we all are in a way, what's one way that you could interact better, right?
Well, one thing I think is just to be curious about the content. It's, history is just some of the most interesting topics that you could ever study. And it's examining the history of humanity, the history of psychology and culture. And so the more you get engaged with the ideas you get throughout the semester, makes study like a really interesting experience.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And another something that I like to do, or something that I think just happens naturally for me, is to just question everything, and not question, but I mentally disagree. If somebody somebody's up and in front of the room giving their opinion, or giving their summary of something, I like to mentally just go, hang on, is that right? Why? It 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 kind of turns my brain on a little bit more and makes me a little bit more involved in the process. Um, Another thing is, if you haven't heard of the squirt method before, this is a reading strategy. So let's say you've got your course text. Um, you can start out by surveying it, reading the index and the sort of headings and subheadings, and then for each of those headings or subheadings, transform it into a question. Have that sort of question mentally prepared. Like, how did the Portuguese integrate with these people when they first came in and colonized or whatever? Um, and then go back through, and when you're reading, you kind of answer your own questions. And the next level up is you summarize it into your own words and then prepare questions to ask other people. So a great student would take the week 4 readings and read both of them, prepare questions, and then go to the library website, book a room, get into the discussion in their unit, and organize a sort of study group where once a week they would come together with their friends. It's like a book club. You've done the readings for the unit, and you sort of get together and can have a little chat about it. So yeah, that's one way that I do it. Tip number 5 is to understand your assignments. Now, you'll notice that assignments all follow a pretty similar structure. We've got a page in study skills about this. So when you're understanding a task, it's really important in the beginning to just figure out what kind of task is it. Pretty much at CDU, those are the main ones. Those are the main ones you're going to get in it. I think the first one that you have to do is an essay. But they all sort of fall broadly within each of those. And we've got examples, we've got models for most of these kinds of assignments. And also the prompt is really important. So there's always going to be a task word or task words, which are like verbs that tell you what to do. There's going to be content words, which cover which subject you're dealing with. And then there'll be scope words, which sort of define the limitations of how far you should investigate or whatever. So this is a very simple one where we're discussing the impact of this thing among this group of students. So really, like, all of your assignments will have this, we call it a prompt. You should really like read it multiple times and kind of figure out what is the task, what's the content, and what's the scope. Um, and those task words are important. Like discuss, for example, is a pretty simple task. Discuss is you just look at something from multiple sides. But analyze, on the other hand, that's a level up in terms of cognitive difficulty. You know, you've got to break down a topic and see how things relate to each other. So get familiar with the different kinds of task words that we use. These are the easy ones. If you're lucky, you'll get an assignment with just those. These are the intermediate ones. And then if you're unlucky, or later on in your degree, you'll be coming across words like this: critique that, or propose that, or reflect on that. The last thing I'd say about understanding your tasks is that most of the tasks will have an assessment rubric attached. Some units use the same rubric for all of the tasks, and some units have a specific rubric per task. So this is an example of, I think it's a nursing, assignment, and really like get into these. You'll notice that each part of the criteria, they're not always evenly weighted. So in this one, I can see that that's worth 30%. That's the most important thing to my lecturer when they're grading it. And it's about solutions, basically. Um, so yeah, these are like a little roadmap for how to do well and what your lecturer is looking for. In this case, they want you to look at the positives of something, the negatives of something, and the solutions to something. And you get 20% for formatting. So if I'm trying to, plan my essay, that's a simple one for me. I start with an introduction. I have a paragraph about the positives. I have a paragraph about the negatives. I have a paragraph about the solutions, and then I have a conclusion kind of thing. It's like a little, well, they can help. They can help you um, to sort of plan out your work. Yeah. So yeah, I've already mentioned the study skills site, which overviews the main assignment types. But another thing that might be useful to you is there's a LibGuides site that has model assignments. So let's say you are doing an essay, you can come here, have a look at an example essay that's been annotated and has instructions. You know, it'll show you sort of how it's set out, and color-coded comments. Set your argument up here, provide a citation here, start a new paragraph here. Very, very useful. If you want to sort of see a template for how they work, and which parts do what. So, so yeah, understand your assignments. Next one is to write academically and critically. So we want to use correct grammar. And in a lot of the assignments, they don't just want you to describe something. They want you to think critically about it and analyze it. So I can't remember what I put there, but what did I choose for that? If you want an example of some kind of critique, let's have a look at this one. This is a higher level sort of task than what you've been set, but critique writing goes beyond descriptive writing. You kind of want to look at the relationships between things, and how sources might agree and disagree with each other. And there's some examples and excerpts there. Um, the other thing that might be useful to you is this planning template. So if I don't use tools like this anymore, but I wish that when I was starting out, I did. So there's this essay mapping tool, and essentially it just asks you some questions. It's like, what's your background to this? What's your thesis statement? And if you go through and sort of fill in all of these boxes, what's the main topic for paragraph 1? How are you going to support that? How will you conclude that? You go through and fill them all in, and then you click this little button at the bottom, and it'll make an outline for you, an outline of an essay using your main points. And so yeah, that can be useful for beginners. Might also caution you about Grammarly. A lot of students, they depend too heavily on Grammarly to like fix their grammar or fix their language. Kind of, I think it comes from they just feel not that confident that the language that their English is going to be acceptable. But if you are going to use Grammarly, please use the institutional Grammarly, the one that doesn't have a lot. It doesn't generate text. It's not like it doesn't make things up, or it just will. It'll fix your grammar, and don't depend on it too heavily. If you agree to 100 suggestions from Grammarly in your document, it can transform the language, and it can make it flag up in plagiarism detectors later on. So yeah, use it with caution. The 7th tip is to not be shy about seeking support and advice. So, the first point of call would be your lecturer. If you ever want to talk to your lecturer, there's this little email icon right at the top of your LearnLine unit. You just click that and ask them a question. So that'd be the first one. Well, there's multiple teams in the library that have self-access materials and also appointments that you're welcome to take advantage of. We have an online tutoring service that's an external service, and yeah, I haven't used that one much, but I would remind you about it. So there's 3 kinds of appointments that you can have, and there's 3 kinds of self-access within the library that you can take advantage of. So yeah, lecturer first when you're asking for help. You might also want to ask your peers in the discussion in your LearnLine unit, and take advantage of this sort of academic support or assignment help that's available to you from the library. And the last one is to reflect. So if you're the kind of student that goes to lectures or tutorials, and then after they leave the room, never think about it again, then you're not learning as well as the student who goes to the lectures or the tutorials and then goes away and does some kind of activity where you bring your notes back up and reflect on what you've learned. So I'd really encourage you to have some kind of a system where after you've learned something or after you've written something, you take it to someone or something, or even do it by yourself and reflect on it. Lecturers are usually pretty busy. They might not want to give you point by point advice on your assignment draft, but people like me or Rach have more time for that kind of thing. So make an appointment with us. And what's another way that I could get feedback on my work? If I don't want to bother my lecturer, and if I don't want to bother a human, what's another way that I could do it? What do you feel about pasting your assignment into Gen AI and asking Gen AI to give you advice, Rach? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be cautious because Gen AI hasn't attended the lectures and tutorials that I have, so it doesn't have any of the context. But if I wanted to get feedback maybe on sentence structure, or if I wanted to say, I'm introducing a new topic on colonial rule in Southeast Asia, and I want to introduce each different topic through starting and then go building up through the discipline. I might use AI to help me structure or give feedback on maybe some of the sentence structure, but probably use it with the acknowledgement that it hasn't attended the unit, doesn't really know anything about the context. But it might be a good free and easy thing that I could use.
And quick, 24 hours a day. But yeah, I wouldn't be trusting Gen AI for content or for ideas. It's really quick at generating a structure, and it can give you advice on your language, but I wouldn't let it take over and start rewriting your sentences for you. The final thing that I would plug, and to be honest, I've never used it, and I haven't got much feedback from students, but I've been told to let students know about it, is we've got an online tutoring service. It's tutor.com. It's external. It's not anybody within the university. It's probably someone in America or something, but you get 10 hours of free um, one-to-one online tutoring with this every semester, and you can access it through the support folder of any LearnLine unit um, with that little green icon, or you can learn more about it by scanning that. So check it out if you haven't, and if you've got any feedback on it, please let me know, because you kind of feel weird recommending it to people when I haven't tried it myself. Um, so yeah, those are my 8 tips. I hope that you got something from that. And now I'm going to pass it over to my esteemed colleague who will let us know about some essential resources. Do you want to share your screen, Rach?
Oh no, I think if you could just go through to the slide
Yeah,
that has the referencing styles on it, I think we can
okay.
skip straight to that.
Yeah,
And I can speak to this slide. And thanks, Josh. That's actually really useful. And I wish I had that when I was starting study, because just having that sort of plan in your mind about how to get on the right foot for the semester and some of the tools and all that sort of help you can get is really important being early in the
yeah,
semester before you get the
so
stress of
much.
assignments. And so something early too to think about is your referencing style. So do read through your essential resources in your unit, and does it really explain to you the structure, style, and what referencing you can use? So in that guide, you can choose 3 different styles: CDU APA, CDU Harvard, and Oxford. And so you get to choose your own adventure and which referencing style you would like to use. Sometimes you might have used a different style in high school or another unit, so you might like to stick to that, or you might like to have a look at the different options there.
I've
CDU,
got to say that the Oxford one, that looks kind of tricky compared to the in-text for the Harvard and the APA. They look easy, but that one looks tough.
oh, CDU Oxford. Well, actually, they're just different styles. I really like the footnoting style, which is CDU Oxford, and it's also similar to Chicago, Vancouver, and even the AGLC.
Uh,
Yeah,
so this is actually, I get it. That is the number that's next to the site. That's in text, and that's at the bottom of the page. Is that how
that's
it
right.
works? Okay,
So you've
I
got
get it now.
footnotes in the text, and you've got a bibliography at the end.
Right.
CD Oxford is great because you look at the guide, it explains what a book, what a journal looks like on a website, and the citation goes in full at the footnote at the bottom of the page. If you look at that
Okay.
guide, it's got some really great examples of how it's set out.
Yeah.
And then you have a bibliography with all the information set out at the end.
Okay. And they sometimes call the bibliography that, don't they?
That's right. So CDU Harvard and APA have a reference list.
Okay.
And for those students interested in the difference, a referencing list is just the material that you've used for your in-text citation. A bibliography, which is used in Oxford and AGLC, is more detailed. Sometimes you may refer to sources that go beyond what you've cited in your text, but always read the instructions for CDU Harvard. It's really great examples of how to put your footnotes and put in your bibliography.
Cool.
For
So,
CDU,
I mean, just to confirm, I didn't know that before, just right now. Reference list is sources that I actually quoted or have cited in text, but bibliography, I can just choose anything that even if I haven't used it. Is that
that's
how it
right.
works?
And like if you're a student and you're just starting off, just include the citations to your what you've referenced in the text. It's often bibliographies are used for advanced researchers too that may be using a whole host of sources that they don't cite in text, but are what sort of like created their thinking or influenced what they were researching and writing about.
Hmm.
But if you're just starting out and referencing, I think the main thing is to think about do want to use an in-text citation. That means that every time you use information from another source, you include the author and the date as a part of the in-text citation. You can see an
Okay.
example there from Harvard and an example there from APA, and they're very similar. There's some
And
minor changes.
I noticed these have got page number. Do we need that for every in-text citation?
Yes, absolutely. So when you read through the essential resources for each of these units, there's guidance on that and the importance for history research to guide your readers back to the original page or the original source. So say, for example, anyone reading about Charles Moth Eaton, a pioneer aviator in the Northern Territory, if we
Mm,
go to page 37 of that work, we'll find that specific information. Where did it come from?
right. Cool. Very useful. And that's our main referencing page there.
That's right.
Okay.
So at this stage, you may not need to learn everything about referencing, but it's good to note that it's there. And just like Josh explained too, having that style of setting up and pairing your notes can really save you time. So when you go to prepare your assignments, you've already got the information, you've got your journal article, and you've got your referencing ready to
Yeah.
go.
So, what if someone's got questions about something that we've covered today? Where can they go? Right?
So many different options there to get help, which is great. So again, it's almost like choose your own adventure. So if it's at 2 a.m. in the morning and I need help, I'm probably going to choose something like online tutor or
Yeah.
ask the library at cdu.edu.au using
And will they
in
answer?
the next, as soon as the library opens, we'll be on it. So that's a way to get your question in the line first thing in the morning and
Right.
the 24-hour online tutor. Otherwise, if I know an assignment is coming up, then I'm going to book with a language and learning advisor. I'm going to bring along a sample to show. So I might be, say, my assignment's during week 6. I might make an appointment in week 5 and just bring something along to show.
So, yeah, okay, that's good to know. Let's say I've made a draft for my essay. Can I book an appointment with one of these people? I can take my draft to them and they can sort of help me with it. Is that how it works?
It might be a really good place to start. Of course, a language and learning peer skill advisor or online tutor aren't going to complete or write for you,
No.
but it might give them an idea of what stage you're at.
Yeah.
And for those appointments, I think the way to get the maximum out of those appointments is to become prepared. Have an
Yeah.
idea or a set of questions that you want help with. And sometimes having a sample of your writing or what research question can really help get the
Right.
maximum out of that session.
And what if I just have nothing? Can I still make an appointment if I just don't even understand the question?
Yeah, you certainly can. And that'll be your question. So I don't
Mm.
understand the question. And so the more you can articulate what you need help with is great. And if I
Cool.
didn't understand the question too, I might even start with something like study skills
Yeah.
because
Just,
I love that site because there's some great examples of to understand different assignment types.
yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to know what the end product looks like. So
Yeah.
I'll look for the word essay and see if that word appears on study skills.
Yeah.
And that will really help me understand what I need to do for the task.
Cool. Well, um, if anybody's got any questions, you can pop them in the chat. And this is even for people watching the video. If you've got questions about the content, you can ask the library at cdu.edu.au. And if you've got any comments on this session or on this video, I'd invite you to leave some feedback in that link. We always want to make them a little bit better. Um,
Can
any
I
final
just
comments?
add a couple of points just to
Sure.
some things that have been said?
Yep.
Yeah, thanks so much, Josh and Rachel. It's been really useful, and I hope the
Welcome.
students can get something out of it. But I just wanted to clarify a thing about bibliography.
Yep.
The way that I'm using the term and what I'm asking students to do is the bibliography and a reference list in this case are identical. It's just a different
Okay.
way that they're written, and the
Well,
terminology we tend
I
to use in
actually
history
thought
is bibliography.
Yeah, that's what I
So it
thought.
has
I
to
didn't
be,
know there was a difference.
you have to cite the thing in the
Okay.
text. Otherwise, I don't want to see it in the bibliography. And
So it's
students
not
sometimes
allowed
think,
to put
I
something in
actually read
there
that,
if
but
I
I didn't
haven't used.
actually cite it, and they put it
Yeah.
in the bibliography. Well, I can't. You've got to show that you've actually used it
Yeah.
for the
So
work that we're doing
so
here.
it's not okay for me to just put in 20 references to sources that I haven't actually read. I have to have used the some words from that source or some ideas from that source and
Yeah,
cited
yeah.
it in
Cited.
text.
You have to be able to show that you really have engaged with that particular piece of literature that you're saying you've looked at.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm asking. And the other thing that I'd like to mention is just about use of AI. I do actually give a statement about that in each of the study guides that I'm not encouraging use of AI.
Okay.
But I do understand that it can be useful, as Rachel said. It might help you with structure, might give you some ideas too, and that's fine. You can do that, but don't rely on that, and don't use it as a substitute for your own analysis and whatever. If you used AI and you don't understand how it came to those conclusions, then it hasn't really helped you. You need
Yeah.
to be able to understand yourself how you could do it yourself.
Oh, that's very clear actually.
Yeah.
AI is not to be used in
Yes,
any assessments in this unit. All
that's
right.
right.
Good to know.
Yeah,
Good
so
to
that's what
know.
I'm asking. But if you have any doubts, ask me. So
Yeah.
yes, you can use all sorts of different things to give you ideas, but in the end, the main ideas have to be from you. You have
Yeah.
to actually show that you've actually gone through these things. The analysis is yours and whatever.
Yeah.
So they're the main things I would add. But otherwise, I think you've given so many great examples there on how to do better in your studies, and all of those resources available from the library are fantastic. So thanks a lot.
All good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. We'll leave it there. Come and see us in the library, guys, and good luck in your studies.